Welcome. In this video, we're going to focus on motivation in organizations, but not in a purely theoretical way. The aim is to understand motivation as something managers and organizations can shape through job design, work arrangements, participation, and rewards. If you remember one idea from this video, let it be this. Motivation is not a single lever. It's an ecosystem. People are motivated when they experience their work as meaningful, when they feel capable and supported, when they perceive fairness, and when the environment makes the right behavior easier than the wrong behavior. Let's start by clarifying what motivation is. Motivation is the set of forces that determine how intensely people work, how long they persist, and what direction they choose. So motivation isn't only about effort. It's also about whether people focus on the right tasks and keep going when things get difficult. That matters because many organizations don't have a raw effort problem. They have a direction and persistence problem. People work hard, but on the wrong priorities, or they burn out and disengage, or they do exactly what is measured while ignoring what actually matters. A good way to think about motivation is to separate it into intrinsic and extrinsic sources. Intrinsic motivation means people engage in work because they find it interesting, meaningful, or personally satisfying. Extrinsic motivation means people engage in work to obtain external rewards or to avoid negative consequences like pay, promotions, grades, recognition, or fear of penalties. Both exist in almost every job. The practical challenge is not choosing one and rejecting the other. The challenge is blending them intelligently, because extrinsic systems can either support intrinsic motivation or undermine it, depending on how they are designed and how they are experienced. One of the most powerful applied approaches to motivation is job design. When people say, "This job is demotivating," they often mean, the work is structured in a way that makes it hard to care. In many organizations, jobs evolve through history and convenience rather than intentional design. Tasks get fragmented, decisions get centralized, and people lose sight of the purpose of their work. That is a recipe for low motivation, even among capable employees. So what makes a job motivating? There are 5 job design elements you can use as a diagnostic lens. First is variety. Does the job require different skills, or is it repetitive and narrow? Second is identity. Does the person complete a whole piece of work, or only a tiny fragment with no visible outcome? Third is significance. Does the person feel the work has an impact on others or the organization? Fourth is autonomy. Does the person have discretion in how and when to do the work, or is everything tightly prescribed? And fifth is feedback. Does the job itself provide clear information about performance, or does the person operate in a fog until evaluation time? These elements matter because they shape how people experience the work. When variety, identity, and significance are present, people tend to feel their work is meaningful rather than pointless. When autonomy is present, people tend to feel responsible and psychologically own the outcomes. When feedback is present, people know what to improve, and improvement itself becomes motivating. You can often predict motivational problems by looking for weak points in these elements. For example, if someone complains that they feel like a cog, the identity and significance elements are likely weak. If someone feels micromanaged and disengaged, autonomy is likely weak. If someone feels anxious and uncertain about how they're doing, feedback is likely weak. Job redesign can improve motivation, but redesign doesn't always mean adding more tasks. Sometimes the most motivating change is increasing control, increasing visibility of outcomes, or increasing connection to the people who benefit from the work. One simple redesign strategy is rotation or cross-training. Rotation can reduce boredom and build flexibility, and it can help employees understand how their work connects to the broader workflow. But it has costs: training time, ramp-up time, and coordination friction. So rotation works best when it's used intentionally, when the organization treats it as an investment in capability and resilience, not as a random reshuffling. Another redesign strategy is enrichment, which means adding higher-level responsibilities that increase ownership and meaning. For example, rather than having a person only execute tasks, you might involve them in planning, quality checking, or improving the process. Enrichment can be motivating because it communicates trust and allows people to use judgment, not just follow instructions. But enrichment can also backfire if it becomes more work with no more support. If you increase responsibility without increasing resources or authority, people will experience it as exploitation rather than empowerment. A third redesign strategy focuses on relationships and impact. Many employees are motivated by knowing they're helping someone. When people can see the consequences of their work on real beneficiaries, customers, clients, patients, students, or colleagues, the work often becomes more meaningful. This is why even short contact with beneficiaries or hearing concrete stories about how the work helped someone can boost effort and persistence. Managers sometimes underestimate this because they assume meaning is an abstract value. In reality, meaning is often created through vivid human connection. Now let's shift from job design to work arrangements. Motivation is shaped not only by what we do, but by when, where, and how we do it. Flexible work arrangements can improve motivation primarily by increasing autonomy and reducing friction between work and life. Flex time, for example, allows employees to adjust start and end times while still meeting organizational needs. For many people, this reduces stress and improves self-regulation. But flexibility is not a universal benefit in every job. In roles requiring fixed coverage, healthcare, retail, operations, flexibility must be carefully designed so it doesn't simply shift burden to others. Job sharing is another arrangement where two people split one full-time role. This can retain skilled people who cannot or do not want to work full-time. But job sharing requires strong handoffs and shared accountability. Otherwise, it creates duplication and confusion. The motivational benefit depends on whether the arrangement is respected and supported rather than treated as second class. Remote work and hybrid work are now central motivational topics. Remote work can increase autonomy and reduce commuting stress. And for many roles, it can improve performance and satisfaction. But remote work can also reduce social connection, make learning harder for newcomers, and create visibility concerns. People may worry that being remote makes their contributions less recognized. Motivation can drop if employees feel isolated, if expectations are unclear, or if boundaries disappear and work becomes endless. The motivational lesson is that remote work is not just a location change, it is a system change. It requires norms around availability, response times, decision-making, documentation, and meeting discipline. It also requires boundary management. When employees cannot disengage, motivation can morph into overwork and then burnout. Leaders play a major role here by modeling boundaries, clarifying expectations, and focusing on outcomes rather than surveillance. Monitoring can destroy autonomy, and autonomy is one of the biggest motivational levers remote work offers. Another major motivational tool is employee involvement. People are typically more motivated when they have voice, when they can influence decisions that affect their work. Involvement can increase commitment because people support what they help create. But involvement must be real. If employees are asked for input and then ignored, motivation can actually drop below baseline because the process signals disrespect. Also, not every decision benefits from full participation. Participation works best when employees have relevant information, when decisions affect their daily work, and when leaders are willing to share power in a meaningful way. Participation also raises cultural considerations. In some cultures and organizational environments, direct voice is expected and valued. In others, voice may be offered more indirectly or cautiously, especially if hierarchy is strong. So involvement needs to be designed in a way that is psychologically safe, culturally appropriate, and structurally meaningful. Now let's tackle rewards, because rewards are where many organizations default when motivation is low. Pay matters, but it matters in specific ways. People often overestimate the motivational power of pay increases in the long run and underestimate the motivational damage of perceived unfairness. If employees perceive pay as unfair, they will ruminate, compare, and withdraw effort, even if the absolute pay level is decent. Conversely, if the pay system is transparent and perceived as fair, pay becomes less emotionally disruptive, and people can focus their energy on the work. In applied motivation, there are two core fairness questions around pay. The first is internal fairness. Do people believe pay differences inside the organization reflect differences in responsibility, skill, and contribution? The second is external competitiveness. Do people believe they are paid reasonably compared to what they could earn elsewhere? If either is violated, motivation is affected, sometimes through quiet disengagement, sometimes through turnover. Performance-based pay is a common tool, but it's not automatically motivating. For performance pay to motivate, employees need to believe three things. First, that their effort actually affects performance. Second, that performance will be measured accurately. And third, that performance will be rewarded reliably. If employees don't trust the measurement system, performance pay becomes noise, politics, or luck. And if rewards fluctuate unpredictably, employees may experience insecurity rather than motivation. Different incentive designs also motivate different behaviors. Individual incentives can boost individual performance on measurable tasks, but they can harm collaboration if people begin competing rather than helping. Team incentives can improve cooperation, but they can also create social loafing if individual accountability is weak. Organization-wide incentives like profit sharing can create a sense of shared fate, but many employees feel disconnected from firm-level results and may not see how their daily actions influence the outcome. The motivational impact of any incentive depends on whether employees understand it, value it, and trust it. There's also a deeper issue. Incentives can accidentally reward the wrong thing. If you reward short-term metrics, people may chase short-term wins at the expense of long-term health. If you reward only output, people may sacrifice quality. If you reward only speed, people may take unsafe shortcuts. So the motivational question is never just, does it increase effort? The real question is, what behavior does it shape, and what unintended behavior does it invite? Benefits can also motivate, especially when they are flexible and aligned with employee needs. When employees can choose among benefits, health coverage options, time-off structures, childcare support, training budgets, they experience the reward as more personally meaningful. And meaning matters for motivation. But the same fairness rule applies. If benefits are seen as arbitrary or unevenly distributed, they can create resentment. Recognition is one of the most underpriced motivators, especially for knowledge work and service roles. Recognition works because it communicates value, belonging, and identity. People want to feel seen. But recognition can also backfire if it's perceived as favoritism, political, or disconnected from real contribution. So effective recognition is specific, timely, and linked to behaviors that matter. And it is credible. Leaders don't need to praise constantly. They need to recognize accurately. At this point, it's useful to connect job design, involvement, and rewards into one integrated view. Motivation tends to be strongest when people have meaningful work, sufficient autonomy, clear feedback, a fair system of rewards, and a voice in how work is done. If you strengthen one element while weakening another, you may not get the result you expect. For example, you can pay people more, but if the work is meaningless and tightly controlled, you'll often get compliance, not engagement. You can offer autonomy, but if people lack resources and clarity, autonomy becomes anxiety. You can involve people in decisions, but if the organization ignores them, participation becomes cynicism. There are also individual differences. Not everyone is motivated by the same things. Some people respond strongly to growth and learning opportunities. Others prioritize stability and predictability. Some are energized by social connection. Others want quiet autonomy. This is why one-size-fits-all motivation often fails. A good manager learns what different people value and tries to align the work environment with those values in ways that still serve organizational goals. Finally, let's end with practical guidance you can apply as future leaders and consultants. If motivation is low in a team or organization, don't jump immediately to incentives. Start with diagnosis. Ask, is the work meaningful? Do people have control? Do they get feedback? Is there fairness? Do they have voice? Are goals clear? Are resources adequate? Are people burning out? Then intervene with the smallest change that addresses the highest leverage constraint. Sometimes the fix is clarifying priorities. Sometimes it's redesigning a job to increase ownership. Sometimes it's strengthening feedback loops. Sometimes it's adjusting a reward policy to restore fairness. And sometimes it's simply removing obstacles, unnecessary approvals, pointless meetings, unclear roles that drain motivation every day. To summarize, motivation is shaped by the design of work, the structure of time and place, the extent of involvement and voice, and the credibility and fairness of rewards. Sustainable motivation doesn't come from pushing people harder. It comes from building a system where effort makes sense, improvement is possible, and people can see that their work matters and is treated fairly. That's what transforms motivation from a temporary surge into a stable organizational capability. Thank you for joining me.